Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to the Valiantys Jira Work Management for All webinar. So first, let me thank you for joining today. I really hope you find this webinar valuable and worthy of your time. My name is Jason Kidner. I'm going to be your tour guide for the next hour or so. I'm an enterprise solutions architect here at Valiantys. I'm also a safe practice consultant and a certified Atlassian professional. And I'm also joined by my colleague, Kylie Braun. She's going to be monitoring the Q&A area, and she's also going to be posting some really helpful links in the chat on this webinar. So look out for those. Our agenda today is very simple. I'm going to cover a couple of introductory thoughts about working in better ways and about some Atlassian tools. Then most of the webinar is going to be examples. Going to cover 5 examples of ways that we've solutioned some things for various clients, and I'm going to go over those one at a time. And then at the end, we're going to have some time for questions that you can put your questions in the Q&A area of this Zoom meeting, and I will do my best to answer those at the end. It's a very straightforward agenda. All right, so first off, we're going to talk about some things about working better. So despite the name of this webinar, we're not just going to be talking about Jira Work Management, that Atlassian product. We will get to that in the first demo, but we're also going to be talking about an array of tools and processes that will help you and your team work in a better way, no matter what type of team you are. So what does working in a better way look like? A couple of thoughts here. It means making work visible, having clear next steps in your processes, making work collaborative, using flexible tools that change as quickly as your environment changes, and shifting your mindset from doing more work in less time to generating more value with less work. Okay, so you're going to see those themes, those ideas come out throughout each of the demos that I'm going to do. People, processes, and tools are key to whatever work you're doing and whatever your organization is doing, okay, no matter what type of work you're doing. So I show these in this particular order: people, then processes, then tools, because people are foundational to anything your organization is doing. And then that's followed then by processes that hopefully are focusing on value and collaboration. And then finally, you have tools that are meant to support and not hinder your people and your processes. So a lot of times I work with customers where they're looking for the tools to solve their problems, okay? And tools can be incredibly helpful, but they can't solve your people or your process problems. They just can't do that, even the best tools. So that's why, yeah, just wanted to highlight that. So really a focus on kind of this order, and you need them all ultimately to kind of be working well together to achieve what your organization is trying to achieve. Okay, so we're next going to turn our attention to some great tools in the Atlassian ecosystem that, as you're going to see, can benefit any type of team, not just software development or IT teams. So just a quick Atlassian overview. So Atlassian has a large set of products and tools. These tools are quite ubiquitous. They're likely already being used in your organization somewhere, somehow, even if it's just one user using a personal Trello board. So we often work with business teams who don't really even need to purchase Atlassian products because they're already being used within their company. And even if they're not already used in your company, they're very easy to set up, to start using, to start trialing, and they're very customizable. And we're not going to get into all the nuances of customizing. That's going to show up in other webinars that we do. But basically, the key point here is if you don't have one of these tools, they're very inexpensive. They're very simple to get started with. you likely will not have to go to your VP of procurement to try to start using these, or potentially get some buy-in to help these bring more value to your company. So what are these tools? So they're all designed for teams. They're collaborative, they're flexible, they're scalable. The various Jira products that I have here, Jira Work Management, Jira Software, and Jira Service Management, these are all designed to help your teams collaboratively plan and track and visualize work. And we're going to highlight each of these in various the examples today. Okay, so we're going to cover these 3 Jira products. Then we're also going to look at Confluence in a couple of our examples. Confluence is a collaborative wiki-style documentation tool that, as you'll see, has some very tight integration with the Jira products. Then lastly, here on this slide, I note Trello. Trello is a board-centric tool that many different types of teams find valuable, even users find valuable in their personal lives. It's a very simple, again, straightforward tool that does also have some integration with the Atlassian products, especially Confluence, that I'll show shortly. And just a final note on these tools, these are not some specific module in a larger service, like a larger package that you might have to purchase. They're a framework in which you can build exactly what you need for your team. So maybe your company only needs Jira Work Management, and that's what you'll purchase a license for. Some of you will need both Jira Software and Work Management, and maybe some of these other tools, but you can just piece them together, again, into a framework. They're all, again, tightly integrated, and we can certainly walk with you and talk with you after this webinar if you want to know more. Okay, let's jump into some examples. We have 5 solutions here that we're going to talk about. These are solutions that we have built for our clients, and all of them are based on the better way to work principles that I discussed earlier. And I really hope that these will resonate with you. So we're going to walk through task management, project management, hiring and onboarding, service desks, and then lastly, documentation, or just the centralization of information. First, we're going to talk about task management, and we're basically going to highlight each of these we're going to walk through who are they for, what's the problem with task management, what do teams typically experience, what are their pain points, then kind of a broad solution, kind of a high level description of the solution, and then what tools are going to be a part of that solution, specifically these Atlassian tools. So for task management, who is this for? Well, everyone, every type of team is usually doing some sort of work, right? Some tasks that need to be managed. And the problem that teams face are, what do we have to do? What's our team responsible for? Is everything up to date? How do I know that this is the latest and greatest current state of things? And then who is taking care of that particular task? Meaning, who's assigned to that? Who should have the eye on that ball? Is it me? Is it somebody else? Okay. So the solution at a high level is central task management with multiple views, depending on the audience that needs to see what's happening. And then the tools, in this case, I'm going to show Jira Work Management. So here I'm going to jump over into our demo instance. This happens to be a cloud instance. So everything I'm going to show you, whether it's Jira or Confluence, it's all in the cloud. There are data center versions as well that your organization might be using that are going to look very similar. But this, again, is very a cloud-centric demo of what we've done with some other clients. So here I'm going to go into one of our Jira Work Management projects. In the cloud, they're noted as company managed business projects. It's synonymous with being a Jira Work Management project. This one happens to be called accounting. So those of you who have been out here and maybe haven't been here for a while, you're going to notice that these business projects or work management projects do look different. They have had a lot of investment and a lot of the UI has changed a lot in these. So I'll walk through some of these features. So first off, the work management projects come with a summary. This is kind of just a high-level dashboard of what's happening within this particular project And it has a couple of widgets. Again, this isn't customizable. This is just kind of set up for kind of a quick view of status overview and recent activity and a few other metrics that Atlassian has gotten feedback on that are helpful for business teams. Then there's a board tab. And this is similar to a Kanban board you might be used to within Jira software. These boards within the Jira work management projects are not nearly as customizable as you'll find out like with your Kanban or your Scrum boards with Jira software. They really align with the workflow statuses that are being used for your underlying issue types in the project. But they are very usable and they're great. So you can go to any one of these cards on the board. These represent a work item or what's called an issue within Jira. And you can click on one of these and it'll bring up a view screen that also has a lot of inline editing. And you can see a lot of great information on a given work item. You can also take one of these work items and you can drag and drop it into one of the other columns, basically essentially moving it along its workflow. Every issue or work item in Jira has a unique workflow. And those are very customizable and are very interesting, as we'll cover in a later example. So there's a board here that allows me to see where all my work items are, what status they're in. There's also a list view. This is very unique to this Jira work management in the cloud. It's a newer view that it shows all the issues or work items within a list or like a spreadsheet or what could be called a grid view. And this is very nice to see a lot of information very quickly. It also allows you to edit. So all of these different columns and cells are editable. So it's really nice. Those of you who are typically work within spreadsheets can bring all that data here within Jira Work Management. You can see it in a similar way that you can see it on a spreadsheet, but it has some great built-in workflows and other visualizations. So you can get to these. There is even a built-in 3-level hierarchy within Jira. So you can see here this purple lightning bolt icon is an epic within Jira. And then that's kind of like the top layer of work, like with the out-of-the-box hierarchy. And then you can put some children issue types underneath an epic. In this case, this checkbox is a task issue. And then under that task issue, you can put what's called a subtask, which is represented by this icon. So you get this out-of-the-box 3-level hierarchy of work that can be highlighted in different ways. You can see it here even in this list view, which is really cool. There's also a calendar view that basically shows the issues or work items in this project based on their dates. Now you do have to have dates like a start and an end date to really highlight these on this calendar view. But once you do put in those start and end dates, they start to show up. You can see exactly where they are. You can see which ones are overdue, given that we're on today's the 7th of September. So you can see which things are overdue. They're in red. And any of these you can also click on. And again, you can get to their underlying view screen where you can see all of the details that are filled out. So this is a very unique view. You don't see this in other views within Jira software or Jira Service Management. There's also a very, I would say, fairly basic timeline view. This is going to be a lot more basic than you might be used to within advanced roadmaps or even in some of the newer timeline views that are showing up within Jira software. But this is available so you can see, again, your start and end dates showing as a timeline, somewhat like a basic Gantt chart here with the work and how they're lining up. So they have that. One other thing I want to highlight here is there's a Forms tab. This basically allows you to create like a basic form, which is essentially like a create screen that you can send out to other users within Jira. And as you can see here, actually, let me go to a slightly different form that's a little bit more interesting. Let me see if this shows here. Well, the idea here is you can bring in different fields from your create screen for, in this case, a task item. And you can basically give some different names around what this is, what the questions you're asking. And these basically, when users fill this out, they start to go into the fields and they basically allow users like an intake form potentially for your team, a very basic intake form that would create, in this case, a task that would go into your project that you could start to manage and assign and start to work on. So that's a new thing, again, within these Jira work management projects. So, and there's a number of other things that are pretty typical with other Jira projects out here as well. But I wanted to highlight that. So this is the one example that I'm going to highlight, Jira work management. If you have any other questions about Jira work management, you can put those in the Q&A. Jira, I will say Jira work management licenses, like you can use these projects if you have a Jira software, that Jira software product within your system and licenses for those. You don't need to buy this as Jira work management as a separate product. But some companies may not need Jira software. They just need Jira work management. And so you could just start off with just Jira work management as its own product. And it's a little cheaper than Jira software, certainly cheaper than Jira service management. So that could be something your company might want to consider. Maybe you just need this and you can just get a license for just this product. Okay, let's switch to our second example. This is project management. So who is this for? Well, it could be for your PMO teams, HR teams, marketing teams, really any team who manages projects that are kind of these larger bodies of work that you're trying to deliver. So the problem here is when managing projects or multiple projects, it's often difficult to keep track of the work when many teams are collaborating or when there's many handoffs within a single team. So there's misalignment, right, where alignment usually comes in the form of standing meetings or manual status reports, which isn't like totally up to date. Some teams might start to get misaligned due to the lack of visibility. Additionally, things are tracked potentially in Excel and in PowerPoint, which can't be made very collaborative, and visibility can be really difficult there, and they need manual updating, and it might just be living on somebody's computer or desktop somewhere. So a lot of potential problems can come up here. We've seen it in various clients that we work with. So again, the solution at a high level is to make the project work more visible, and to make it easily modified as the team and as the environment requires. And also to potentially bring in some automation of reporting to cut down on those standing meetings. As you'll see here, we're going to show tools like Jira Work Management or Jira software, along with Confluence, can allow you to have very up-to-date statuses, no matter which tool you're looking in, because of the tight integration. So here we're going to look, again, in this particular case, we're going to look at a Jira software project and how the issues from that project are then allowed to be visualized in Confluence. So you can see, depending on your audience, you can see this information in two different places. So let's go back. I'll start in Jira software. So in this case, I'm going to go now to a Jira software project. So you can see the differences here if you're new to these tools. So this is a Jira software project. It's called the Marketing Project Management. In this case, it's kind of set up very basic. There's two issue types here in this project. There's the Epic issue type, again, that kind of purple lightning bolt icon. And then we also have tasks that, again, are meant to make up these epics and help deliver those epics. So in this case, our epics represent the projects. Okay, we're talking about project management here. So you see here on this basic Kanban board that's been set up in this project, we have different columns representing the workflow. It's a very basic workflow: to do, in progress, done. We can see the various issues out here. We can see a couple different projects, again, represented by that epic icon. And then for any of those projects, I can click on their card and I can see the fields that could be filled out within Jira. And Jira is wonderful at filling out very finite bits of information, like the people working on this, or just different things, like in this case for a project, what's the background? What are the business objectives? What's the scope of the project? What are the assumptions? And then you can bring in, like, who's assigned to it? What's the project size? What's the estimation of the project size? Who's the sponsor? Who are the stakeholders? Again, very finite bits of information. What are the target start and end dates? What's the due date? What's the priority? And you name it. Anything else that could be really helpful for your organization to help define and to work on a larger project like this. And then as we scroll down in this view screen, I can see that there's child issues in the form of tasks. Some of these are noted as milestones. Some of these are noted as just general work items or tasks. We'll see these over in Confluence shortly. And then, as I mentioned earlier, every work item or issue within Jira has its own workflow. You can see these workflows by seeing, you can go to the status dropdown and click on the workflow. I'll highlight workflows and show you a more intricate workflow in our next example. So this project's set up with the projects represented as epics, with some underlying child issues representing the tasks to complete those projects. And so a lot of great information. The source of truth for these projects is ultimately in Jira. And now I want to show how that can be made visible over in Confluence in some really cool ways. So here I'm going to switch over to our Confluence Cloud instance that's, again, tied in, integrated within our demo instance. So it's very tightly integrated with Jira. And you can easily go back and forth between those by going to this Rubik's Cube icon in the upper left and switching back and forth between various Atlassian products. So over here, I'm in what is called a space. It's very similar to like a project within Jira. This is the marketing space. And the spaces are made up of lots of pages, and these pages can fall under other pages. So there's a hierarchy of pages over here in Confluence. And so I want to look over here in this marketing space down here under the project dashboard page. I have a page set up for each of the projects that are represented over in Jira software as an epic. So I'm going to look at the project alpha page, which is tied in and has a lot of cool gadgets here, or macros as they're called in Confluence, related to the project alpha over in Jira. So first off, I see a mixture here of things that are going to be coming from Jira and also things that just live within Confluence itself. So one really great macro in Confluence is called the team calendars for Confluence. That's represented here, where you can put in different events that are happening within your team, the vacation schedule, maybe some special events, something to highlight where your team can come out here very quickly, look and see all the different things, like activities that are happening. And then I can see here some quick links. This is where some integration starts to kick in with Jira, where I see that the status of this particular project is over, and I'm seeing the status of that epic. The status of the project is the status of the epic within Jira software. So I can see that, and it's a quick link. I could jump from here back into Jira. Then down here, I see a table that's made up of a couple things. First off, there's some statuses that were put in manually into Confluence that are represented in Confluence. So some updating needs to be done in Confluence as well. But then these project details, these bits of information are not manually entered in Confluence. They are coming over directly from fields in Jira. So again, this tight integration where I don't have to update everything manually over in Confluence. I can pull it and use Jira again as that source of truth for lots of those bits of information. And as I scroll down, I can see some other visualizations of the work taking place. So I can represent the current work within this project by using a particular macro. It's called the Jira macro. And you're able to use a filter, a JQL filter, or even an existing filter in Jira to highlight a certain subset of the tasks underneath this epic in Jira. In this case, the ones that are still open, that haven't been closed. So I can see which ones are currently being worked on. There's even a pie chart macro that I can represent the statuses on a pie chart visualization. I can also have a separate macro here that shows the completed work. As I scroll down, I even could have other things around the milestones or deadlines, which could specifically be focusing on the one particular type of work item underneath that epic. In this case, the milestone tasks. So I could see those milestones highlighted here. And as I scroll down further, there's other ways, again, using various Jira macros and kind of configuring them specifically to highlight one particular field on an issue. In this case, these are highlighting various fields from that epic, that Project Alpha epic in Jira. So any changes that take place in Jira, whether it's a workflow status transition or an update to one of the fields, these are going to be represented real time within Confluence. And I can scroll down further. You can see how you can attach attachment files, lots of other macros. This isn't meant to be a deep dive into Confluence. We have other webinars for that, just to show you how Confluence could be used for project management. So this represents just one of those 5 projects the marketing team's working on. And they each have their own page. And then these can then roll up into what's called, well, I'll show you this project dashboard. You can create another page that can basically be used as a summary of underlying pages within Confluence. So this dashboard is using a couple different macros to pull in information from the 5 sub pages here. So let me click off this. There we go. So I can see a table here with each of the project pages represented. It's pulling in the information from different parts of each of the underlying project pages. So I can see the different statuses very quickly, all in one place across all the projects our team's working on. This could be really great for potentially just any user wanting to know where things stand, or it could be used for a particular, work meeting. And again, seeing all this other information show up very nicely, very quickly. As I scroll down too, I can bring in this case, it's an advanced roadmaps plan that's coming over from Jira software. And so there's, again, some other cool integrations that can be brought in. In this case, this involves advanced roadmaps, which again, we cover in other webinars, but it's a really cool visualization. That's a very, very robust road mapping tool within Jira software, the premium tier of Jira software. So that can be shown here as well. So again, in just summary, we're doing project management. We're making work visible within Jira, making the work visible over in Confluence, potentially for other stakeholders to see very easily and summarized and all that information made very nicely, showing very nicely over here. Okay, so we're going to take a quick commercial break, and then we're going to get back to our final 3 examples. So a little bit about Valiantys. So we are a Atlassian Platinum Solution Partner, and as what's highlighted here, we represent the largest global talent pool for Atlassians in terms of an Atlassian partner. We have the people who can make the most of your Atlassian products. As noted here, we are anywhere in the world. We are one of only 3 global partners, so we are all over the world. In this case, I'm representing the Valiantys North America, part of the overall global reach of Valiantys, but we have many different offices around the world, and can definitely help you no matter what country you are in. We can help with any product within the Atlassian ecosystem. We know all the products very well, and we can certainly help you get them implemented or provide support, whatever that might look like. We can also help with any platform that you're using these products on. So Atlassian certainly has a real cloud focus right now. We can help with any of the cloud products, also with private cloud and with data center, all the different platforms of the Atlassian products. We are the #1 Atlassian Platinum Solution Partner globally. And so we have exclusive insight and understanding where we have an unrivaled relationship with Atlassian. We also have real focus, and we're very specialized. We're 100% focused on Atlassian. We're an Atlassian partner, and we're focused on that, and we have expertise in 4 different practices. So whether it's cloud, or if your company needs to migrate to the cloud, we are very specialized in that. Also with ITSM, with Agile at scale, and also at managed services, whatever that might look like for your organization. So very focused and specialized. And then lastly, again, we have that global presence for consulting, support, managed services, anywhere in the world. We also offer licensing support. So if you need licensing, help and support with your Atlassian products, we can provide that. And we also have a really, really great training group here within Valiantys. So training on any of the products that is needed, even getting into potentially Agile at scale like safe training, we can offer that as well. Okay, so that is a little bit about Valiantys. Let's get back to our final 3 examples. So the next example is hiring and onboarding. So who is this for? Well, potentially HR teams. That's like probably the first thing that comes to mind. But it's really any team who needs to onboard. I'll go over this particular example that we did for an insurance company, but we also within Valiantys use Atlassian tools to help with the onboarding process in some similar ways to this example. So anyone who needs to onboard. And the problem here is, everyone has unique needs, unique processes that change over time. The example I'm going to show here relates to a large insurance company that had to hire thousands of people each year. They had to know how full their pipeline was. They had to coordinate onboarding tasks across multiple teams. They had to sync the onboarding process with external systems like an HIRS system. And they also had to meet industry or insurance industry compliance. And they had a lot of processes to figure out, and there was issues around what's the next step in the onboarding process and where is somebody at, and kind of typical things we've talked about work visibility and who's responsible for what. So various pain points for this insurance company. So the solution at a high level was a tailored workflow that provided clear next steps in the onboarding process, as well as some validation steps within that workflow to make sure that the right information was there, going from one step to the next. The solution also involved creating tasks downstream for teams to start to work on ahead of time. So there was some automation involved, and then there was just guardrails around compliance, and also some automation involving the updating and integration with external systems. So a number of special things. I'm not going to deep dive on this. I'm going to kind of show this at a high level, but just to kind of give you a vision for what's possible within Jira software. So the tools here, again, Jira software. You could also potentially use Jira Service Management as part of the whole onboarding process. In our case, I'm going to show you some things within Jira software. So I'm going to go back into our Jira software instance, and we're going to switch to a different project called the Onboarding project. This is also a software project. And what I'm going to highlight here, I'm just going to show you 2 different Kanban boards. The first one represents the tier 1 onboarding. So imagine this insurance company is trying to onboard various tier 1 agents that are going to be, working with customers. So here on this board, we see different parts of the workflow represented by different columns. So I can see, and each one of these cards represents a person that's being onboarded. Okay, so I can see where each of these people happens to be within the workflow, within the onboarding process, and then there's different people that are going to be involved, maybe assigned to that person depending on where they're at in the process. So I'll go to this one in this card in the training column. So Florence here has reached that training part of the onboarding process. So you can see Florence Christie. There could be some information again about who they are, maybe notes, comments about how things are going, or any kind of the handoff from one person to the next. You can use the comments within Jira software to highlight updates. And then what I want to highlight here is the workflow. So I'm going to go to the status of training and then go to the view workflow option here. And this will then render a visualization of the workflow within Jira software. And so a couple of things about workflows within Jira software. There's two main things here. These lozenges, these represent what are called statuses. So we have statuses of recruited, scheduled, training, peer mentoring, and then good to go. A couple other statuses like withdraw or no show, terminated. And each of these statuses has a different colors. You can see the gray represents like a to-do status, kind of something early on in a workflow. The blue represents in progress status, and the green represents a done status. So it's typically an end of the workflow status. So workflows have statuses, and then the lines between the statuses that you see kind of all over the place, those are called transitions. And so transitions is where Jira can do a ton of things. It can do some validation, making sure that the right information is entered onto a given work item. In this case, an issue that represents a person onboarded. So it can provide validation, it can provide automation, and some special, like again, down the road, creation of work items for other teams and maybe other projects. Those can be put in within these transitions. In this case, there's also a request termination transition that could be clicked on potentially anywhere within the workflow. And this could then, again, set up a whole new set of steps that need to be done in order for someone to be terminated, and potential integrations with other outside products as well. And any of these can also include approvals and just you name it. There's all sorts of different things that can be done with these workflows. But the intent here again is to highlight where is somebody in the workflow process or the onboarding process, and then what do they need, who might need to be assigned. Maybe there's some auto assigning. When it gets to training, maybe it comes to Jason to be in charge of their training. And then I hand it off to peer mentoring, and that happens to be another person on the onboarding team. So lots of cool things can be done here. Ultimately, you're trying as a team to help the person ultimately be good to go, to be set up to be able to do their job as a tier 1 agent. But again, some people, it just might not be the right fit. And so there could be other different paths that they take in the onboarding process. So this is the tier 1 workflow. Quickly jump over to the tier 2 board. The tier 2 board really, again, represents people, whether they're in tier 1 now or maybe being brought in as a new hire for the tier 2 agent position. So you see here on this board, this workflow is a bit more complicated, or I guess there's just more steps, because a tier 2 agent needs to have more know-how, certifications, potentially more training. So let me click on one of these cards to get to their workflow. All right, so here we can very quickly see the tier 2 workflow has a number of other statuses and other transitions involved compared to tier 1. And so there's testing involved here, passing the tests, being certified, so on and so forth. Peer mentoring is also part of that. Again, just the steps that are needed, and you could, whatever particular position you're trying to onboard for, they could all potentially be their own work item and with their own workflow within Jira. So this could be very customized depending on any type of position you're trying to hire for. And again, each of these could have its own unique integrations with other outside tools or with downstream work items that need to be created. Lots of opportunities here. So really, and then ultimately, each of these within Jira software are represented by a work item. You could create boards, again, to see where everybody's at in the process, and then who's responsible for that particular onboarding task for that particular user. So a lot of great opportunities. And users can even come out here and they can just very quickly see the work they're supposed to do. You could have quick filters here, as you can see, by assignee. So users can use these boards. They're just really great for all sorts of different work tracking, in this case, for onboarding. So in summary, this particular solution was used to onboard thousands of employees a year. It kept them all in compliance. It kept everyone aligned on the onboarding team about where those new employees were in the process and any other potential integrations that were needed. It was all very tightly solutioned within Jira software. Okay, so that's hiring and onboarding. Our fourth example is service desks. So who is this for? Well, it's really for anyone, okay? As much as you might not think of it, many teams within a company could be considered a service team, right? You're helping, you're supporting other teams, other users within your company. So this could be HR, marketing, facilities, legal, okay? It's not just your IT teams or your service teams. Many different types of teams could be service teams. And the problems here is that there's a lot of different, intake channels for teams, right? They could get an email that comes in to one of the people on the team. There could be a chat in the hall or over lunch that, might really need to be acted on, or some request that comes in. There could be a phone call. So lots of different channels for intake. There's also, maybe there's no clear prioritization. How do I know that this one needs to be done before this task? So that's often a pain point. And then, are we working on the most valuable thing, right? And is there visibility for the person who actually needed help and needed, like, essentially put in the request, whatever that looked like? How are they going to know, like, how it's going, or what this latest status is, or how are they going to be? How am I, as a person on the HR team, going to be in communication with the requester? So lots of different pain points here. The solution at a high level is a service desk that provides a really clean, concise intake form, and that the service desk would also help to keep the requester automatically up to date with where the request is, where it's at in the workflow, potentially, and communication back and forth. And then also there would be some back-end cues to help the people on the team prioritize the work, assign the work, really understand that they have to get back in a certain amount of time, like at SLA, for instance, that we need to respond to this, and what might need some work right now. So the tools involved here are going to be Confluence. Jump back here. Confluence and Jira Service Management. I'm really going to focus on Jira Service Management, but there is some tie-ins between Service Management and Confluence. So I'm going to jump back into our Jira instance. In this case, I'm going to show Jira Service Management. And Jira Service Management includes what's called a portal, or a service portal, with the instance of Jira Service Management. And so this is kind of the high-level portal for the whole instance, okay? And underneath it, I'm logged in as a customer, and customers can be internal or external. In this case, I'll just imagine I'm an internal customer who's going to need help from the HR team. So as I scroll down, I can see this particular portal has an HR service desk and a facility service desk. Okay, I'm going to click on the HR service desk. And again, all of these things are really nice out of the box, like UI. And then the different types of service requests, this is all very customizable within a given project. Again, the service desk represents a Jira Service Management project. So there's lots of different opportunities to fill out a request form for different reasons. Let's click on this employee onboarding option. So when I click on one of these request types, I get an intake form. This one happens to be pretty unique, very customized. This again kind of gives you a vision for what you can do within forms that are in Jira Service Management. Lots of different forms. Each of these will represent some sort of field, bits of information that'll be stored on that Jira Service Management ticket in the background. So lots of different things that could be filled out. Again, very, very customizable. So that's one example of that. I'm going to go, just to show an example of submitting this, I'm going to go to a little simpler form. So I can scroll down to here to the questions for HR. So this is a very straightforward form. So it basically has a summary. What's your question? So how do I learn about our health insurance? Okay, so that's my question, and then description, I'm just gonna keep it simple for our demo purposes here. So, but you can see some of these they're required. They have a little red star, so I have to fill those out. And so I fill this out. Notice that there are some suggested articles here. So Jira Service Management is looking at what I'm typing into the summary, and it's going back and it's looking at its tight integration with Confluence, and there's a bunch of pages over in Confluence that could be referenced and searched through to potentially provide an article that's meant to deflect the need for a ticket to be entered. So a lot of cool background suggestions and features here to provide articles. So imagine I don't need to read this article, or it's not helping me. I need to submit something. So I click send. And I see that this indeed was created. I can see its unique ticket number. It's essentially its Jira key and the information about that. I could potentially, maybe I forgot to put something in here. I could add other comments, which are going to show up as comments on that particular ticket. I can see the status of this particular ticket. I can share it with other users. And so you see a lot of information out here. So this is what you see from the customer point of view. I can also go up here just to note that you can see all the requests you're submitting out here as a customer. You can see created by me. I can see all sorts of different requests. These could have been to different service desks. They happen to all be for the HR one from various past demonstrations. And so you can see when they were submitted, what the status is. So you can see all that out here. So let me click on one of these. And then as I click on this, I'm going to also just open it up in a new tab. And so now I'm going to switch from being the customer to being on the HR team itself. So here, imagine behind the curtain, if you will, I am part of the HR team. I'm an agent, as they're called here within Jira Service Management. And here's the view screen of that ticket. So if I'm an agent and I get assigned to this, this is what I would see. I'd see the information described, inputted from the customer. I could see potentially similar requests, other information around this. I could get maybe some knowledge base. I could get some suggested articles that could help me to work on this ticket and to get a good answer to help solve whatever problem needs to be solved. Notice here within comments, I can add an internal note to one of my team members, but I can also reply to the customer. So there's a very nice collaboration between the agent and the customer here. So if I reply to the customer is going to be notified with an email, and they're also going to see that comment show up when they look at their ticket from their point of view, their portal. So there's a lot of cool things that you can do with collaborating internally as a team or with the customer. And then one other thing to note here, there are what are called queues within Jira Service Management. So I'm going to click on one of these. They're essentially like a filtered view of all the tickets coming in a given project. And these can be, again, filtered in a unique way. This shows all the open and unassigned tickets that have come in. I can see who reported it. I can see the summary. I can see the SLA. In this case, most of these are pretty old and they've gone past the SLA. That's been set up for brand new tickets, but I can see different issue types. And then ultimately out here, you can adjust statuses. You could potentially assign one of these to yourself. There could be a lot of cool automation in the background as well to auto assign, or just what have you, to set things up with right fields that could be filled out appropriately. A lot of really, really cool things that could be done with these service desks. Again, hopefully giving you a vision that these aren't just for IT teams or facility teams. but for any team within a company that's providing services for either internal customers or external customers. Jira Service Management provides a lot of really cool opportunities. Okay, so that is service desks. And I just wanted to note too, just with like any piece of technology, service desks, they can be used in a very impersonal way. So we definitely want to be empathetic when you're working with users and designing these service portals. You want to make it really clear for them to enter in their information, that it's not confusing with the choices they have. So there's a lot of thought, and hopefully you're going to get a lot of feedback as you're rolling this out and just trying it little by little to make it as good as it can be for your customers. All right, so we are at our final example of centralized knowledge. So this is for everyone, right? Any team, any organization, you're going to have a knowledge base, right? Of things you're learning, things that new people need to learn about, or other parts of the company needs to know about your particular team and what you're doing, and so on and so forth. So the problem is, where do I find this information, right? Companies usually have potentially lots of different places where they're storing information. And so you want to be able to quickly find information related to whatever it happens to be. And is that information up to date? Okay. You want to make sure it's a source of truth that is ultimately, you can get to things no matter where it happens to be. You're going to get the latest and greatest view of it. So the solution, again, is a centralized, organized portal for knowledge. Okay, so we're going to highlight here, Confluence could be that organized portal. Okay, so I'm going to jump back into Confluence. And I'm going to stay in this marketing space within Confluence, and I'm going to start up here at the team homepage. So again, imagine this space within Confluence is for the marketing team and the stuff that they're working on and who they are. So this main homepage could be like a landing page that talks about their team. It could give latest updates, meaning the various pages within Confluence that have been updated most recently and who made those updates. These are all, like, again, quick links over to other Confluence pages. But Confluence may not be your only source of truth. That you want to act again as a portal to other information. So in this case, there could be other links besides Confluence. There could be links out to your website that your team represents, or LinkedIn, YouTube, things like that. Other places on the internet, or potentially other places, other tools your company's using internally, as we'll show shortly. You can highlight who your team is, what their roles are, who they are, what are their hobbies. Going down further, again, you can get to that team calendar for Confluence that shows up. If in this case we're in the cloud, this shows up with Confluence Premium tier. There's different tiers of these products, and so this is available with the Premium tier. Then you have frequently used resources. Again, these are links, quick links to, you name it, other places within Confluence or other places in other tools. But again, Confluence can act as that initial portal that you come into, and it might take you to somewhere else, but at least you go there to find out all that you need to know and where to go to get the information, in this case related to the marketing team. So that's a team homepage, and we talked about the project dashboards and the project pages earlier, but there's some other pages that you can highlight. These are just a couple of examples. Like, there's a meeting notes page. This happens to be the summary of all the meeting notes within this space. And then you can create meeting notes after meeting notes and have them all summarized out here. And you can have various templates for your meeting notes. You don't have to keep recreating the wheel. You can just keep using the same template over and over again that works for your team. There's also, in this case, I'm going to click on this new product plan page. Some of these other pages here highlight that there's a really robust integration between Confluence and other SaaS tools, other cloud products out there. In this case, this one shows integration with Miro. So we've put a Miro link here within this particular page. It renders nicely, so it doesn't just show a hyperlink. It shows an actual Miro board. and I can interact with it here within Confluence page. I can also, log into Miro and go over to Miro as well, but notice I can do a number of things visualizing this within Confluence, so I don't have to switch tool contexts. So this is Miro. Another page here, this trade show page, highlights that you can bring in a Trello board. Haven't talked about Trello yet. This is one example of a Trello board. And I'm not going to really show too much else here, but they're like very simple kind of Kanban boards that you can create and customize your columns and your cards, and lots of cool stuff you can do on here. In this case, this is representing a board. Imagine my marketing team is working on a trade show. And so what are all the things we need to do, and where are those tasks at in the workflow? So again, this is interactive. I can work in here instead of going over into Trello. I can just land here and go, oh, you know what? Yep, I need to book my hotel. So I'm going to start working on that, so I can move that to the in progress column. And even add new cards in here. So very interactive, really cool integrations. Again, happens to just be between Atlassian tools. Lastly, wanted to highlight another integration here in this current ad pricing page. This is showing that you don't have to, again, have all your information stored within Confluence. Confluence does have some cool table features that are great for visualization, but it's not great necessarily for a spreadsheet. So in this case, our team is also using Google Sheets. So we happen to have Google as a company, we're using Google tools. So the user that I'm logged in, this email address I'm logged into Confluence, is also my username to get into Google, my Google Drive. And so this is representing some links on our Google Drive. And I'm getting to a sheet here. Over here, I have a Google Doc that, again, can show in line within Confluence. So I don't have to switch back and forth between two different tools. I can see it all nicely within this. And I can also, if I need to, jump over into Google and start to update things over there as well. So again, this is just highlighting Confluence as a way to be that place to create wiki documentation, but it also could be that portal pointing you in the right direction. So that's the end of our examples. So I have some time for questions if my screen doesn't flake out. So hopefully, again, as we're wrapping up and as I'll look here at a couple of questions, really appreciate that you've joined us. There's a lot of different examples we covered today. Hopefully, again, at least one of them resonated with you and your team or your organization. Again, all of these processes and tools, they're not necessarily meant to replace other systems that your company has, like your HIRS, but you could hopefully see how these could potentially fill the gaps or potentially replace like spreadsheets or other ways that your team's working that doesn't provide the visibility and the collaboration that you've seen here today. So let's see if there are any questions. So, okay, so we have one question. It says, how do we link statuses in Confluence for an epic in Jira? So, all right, so let me quickly go back into Confluence, and I'm going to go back into that project alpha. So what happens here really behind the scenes, and actually I'll go ahead and edit this page just so you can kind of see behind the scenes what's going on here. The status of this particular epic from Jira shows up just kind of nicely because what I've done is I've basically, if I click on this, I've basically just put a link in from that epic into Confluence. So I could just come over here within Jira and really just come over any one of these, like in this particular case, I'm not on the epic, but I can just grab this link up here and I can copy it. And then you can paste in the link into Confluence and it'll automatically see that this indeed is a Jira link and I'm going to represent it in a different way. And there's different ways within the cloud to represent it. I could have a cloud or just a basic link. I could show it again here as this, just a kind of a basic link with the progress showing I could show it as a little bit bigger card that would show a little bit more information around it. There's lots of ways to update this. And then ultimately over here, notice here, because of the tight integration, I could even update this and move it and transition the workflow. This is kind of a newer thing within Confluence, but it shows you that bi-directional integration between the two tools that's kind of growing more and more within the ecosystem, especially the cloud tool set. So hopefully that answers your question. I can highlight a lot of different things about a given Jira work item, including its progress or including its workflow status. And I can even, as we saw here, make some updates to the workflow status as well. One other question is, do you offer training on these tools? And yes, we do offer training in various aspects, either through webinars. We also have a lot of private classes and public classes. And then just in wrapping up, I know we are at time. Just in wrapping up, we do have an events calendar. I'll also kind of just leave this up as well if you want to reach out to me via LinkedIn or via email if you have any follow-up questions. My email is jason.kidner@valiantys.com. But in wrapping up, we do have a lot of training opportunities out here. I think Kylie's going to put some of these in the chat. This is just showing some of our upcoming training where we have some webinars. We also have a Jira boot camp, Confluence boot camps. We have Jira service management boot camps and Jira Align boot camps, other things like that. And we can also certainly customize training for exactly what your company might need with any of the tools you've seen today. So with that, just again, thank you so much for joining the webinar today. Hopefully it's been valuable for you. And if you have any follow-up questions, reach out to me, or you can certainly reach out to Valiantys as well. And I hope you have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye, everyone.